Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Killer Creation. In this series, I create a killer and a survivor for the asymmetrical horror survival game Dead by Daylight. Before we get started, I want to apologize for my absence over the past 2 weeks. I had some problems with my laptop and had to put off making videos. I just got my laptop back today and was determined to offer up a video. So, happy Halloween everyone, and it feels great to be back and delivering some new content once again. Now, as far as creating killers and survivors go, I do try to keep perks and powers balanced, but that doesn't always work out. But your feedback on the official Dead by Daylight forums, and the Dead by Daylight and Furry Aminos, and Twitter has really helped. Thank you all for your support. Consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you can be one of the first to see all the newest content as it's uploaded. With all of that out of the way, let's get to this week's killer, the Bloodhound. Dylan Tanner was the huntmaster to a small but still wealthy lord. This lord, however, was the wicked sort, and his desire for game was remorseless. Dylan was instructed to track common game nearly every day, and rarer game at least once a week. His benefactor even imported exotic animals such as lions and rhinoceroses on the rare occasion. All these things and the frequency of the work was perfectly acceptable to Dylan, and the challenges they brought thrilled him for a time. One morning, Dylan's employer had a murderer at the gate and told him that he had been sentenced to death. Dylan was to be his executioner. However, the Lord said that he was willing to be forgiving, and that if the man could survive in the woods for one day without Dylan hunting him down, he would be pardoned and would take Dylan's job as huntmaster. The man was given a head start before Dylan was allowed to go after him. Dylan had no desire to kill the man, but he would not lose his job. As he set off in pursuit of the man, Dylan found that following his trail was different than following that of an animal's. He was doubling back on his course, moving through water to lose his scent, and Dylan began to enjoy the hunt more than he ever had before. By the time the hunt was over and Dylan brought the corpse of the man back to his lord, he was hooked. He told his lord that he would be pleased to dispense out his justice anytime he so desired it, and the lord indulged him. Dylan became so adept at hunting humans that he had raised a special pair of hounds for the job. He became known as the Bloodhound and was feared within the region. However, Dylan began to hear rumors that said the Lord was having men and women kidnapped and fed to his hounds. The rumors also said that the governor was sending men to arrest Dylan and his lord for dozens of murders. But when the governor's men came, the Lord claimed he had never kidnapped anyone, but he didn't know of the murders. He said that he had feared for his life and that if he had brought the authorities in, that he was afraid Dylan would have killed him as well. Dylan fled for his life. Years after this betrayal, the Lord awoke to crackling of a campfire and Dylan sitting a few feet away. Dylan told the Lord that someone else had promised him never-ending hunts in exchange for his Lord's head. But Dylan was still a sport. He would let the Lord try to escape. He only had to survive for one day. Now that the Bloodhound's background is finished, let's take a look at his main stats real quick, then jump into the powers. The Bloodhound has a 4.3 meters per second base speed and a 32 meter terror radius. He's among the slower killers and has a large terror radius, while also being average in height, but he makes up with this with his power on the trail. The Bloodhound can see the footsteps of survivors. Running survivors' footsteps remain for 6 seconds, walking survivors' footsteps remain for 4 seconds, and sneaking survivors' footsteps remain for 2 seconds. The blood and scratch marks survivors leave behind are twice as bright and last twice as long. The Bloodhound's second power is called Release the Hounds. Whenever the Bloodhound hasn't been in a chase for 15 seconds, and only when not in a chase, the Bloodhound can target a survivor's footprints, scratch marks, or bloody trail by channeling the M2 button with this ability for 3 seconds to summon a hound. The hound follows the trail of the survivor at a speed of 4.4 meters per second for 20 seconds. Hounds can leap over vaults, downed pallets, and windows. Hounds can be stunned by pallets. Hounds within 20 meters of their target begin to howl until they catch their target. If the hound catches their survivor, it latches onto their leg and slows their speed by 50% until they can shake the hound off. Survivors with a hound latched onto them make loud, struggling noises, and the hounds growl loudly. The survivor can shake the hound off by holding down the M1 button for 2 seconds, with a 15% chance to remove the hound if the survivor is moving, and a 25% chance to remove the hound if the survivor remains still. Only 2 hounds can be active at any given time. The Bloodhound regains the ability to send a hound after a survivor if a hound does not catch up to its target in its 20 seconds of chasing, or is shaken off by the survivor. Now, as you can see, the Bloodhound's slower speed and larger terror radius are balanced out by being able to better track survivors and slow them down. On the trail gives him the ability to not only see blood trails and scratch marks longer, but also allows him to see footprints, which allows him a way to hunt down more stealthy survivors. Release the Hounds is a way for the Bloodhound to take advantage of his tracking abilities by sending hounds out to find and slow survivors down so that the Bloodhound can catch up to them or keep them busy while he deals with other other survivors. The baying of the hounds and the constant threat of the Bloodhound more easily able to find their trails and hunt them down will keep survivors on their toes. But with his powers out of the way, let's take a look at his perks and see what he has to offer the other killers. The Bloodhound's first perk is called the Most Dangerous Game. Your confidence grows as you bring down those who know you're hunting them. Whenever a survivor is in the dying state, your terror radius is increased by 2, 5, or 10 meters. Scratch marks and blood trails left by survivors last for an additional 1, 2, or 3 seconds. The Bloodhound's second perk is called Pack Hunters. The pack is stronger together, but grows much weaker whenever a member is taken away. You know how best to exploit this weakness. Survivors start each trial with an additional 1, 2, or 3% increase in speed to all actions, and move 2, 4, or 6% faster. Whenever a survivor is hooked, each survivor suffers a 0.5%, 1%, or 2% speed reduction to all actions, and move 1%, 2%, or 3% slower. The Bloodhound's third perk is called Hex Trail Marker. You know every inch of your hunting grounds, and you can tell when things have been disturbed and can follow the trails from there. Whenever a survivor cleanses a totem, they gain a token. Whenever a survivor begins to sprint, for every token you have, their aura is revealed for 0.5, 1, or 2 seconds. And that does it for the Bloodhound's perks. I think he brings a balanced and interesting set of perks. The Most Dangerous Game gives killers a way to more easily hunt and track survivors whenever they need to leave one survivor in the dying state. I think this would combo well with perks like Intimidating Presence. Pack Hunters gives the survivor a solid boost at the start of the game, but actively punishes them as the game goes on and you begin to hook them. 2 or 3 hooks and they will begin to really feel the pressure. Combo it with Thanatophobia or Dying Light and you've got yourself a snail of a game. Hex Trail Marker takes advantage of the new totem cleansing meta, or even just comboed with Ruin or Devour Hope, to make it so that survivors give themselves away each time they sprint simply for cleansing totems. With the Bloodhound's perks out of the way, let's meet this week's survivor, Genea Goodine. Genea was a corpsman in the army, serving in multiple hot zones in the Middle East for 6 years before she became a doctor in her small hometown where she would not only make house calls, but also provided emergency care for law enforcement. Her work in the army allowed her a certain amount of respect with the local police, and she was often asked to join them at crime scenes or accidents. She was great under pressure and was able to patch people up quickly so that they could be stabilized for further treatment. After a few years of being back home, a series of murders began to crop up where the killer seemed to hunt down their victims for some time before finally slaughtering them close to a populated area, as if they wanted them to have the hope of escaping before ending their life. Genea and the police were always on alert for the suspect or a new victim. One day, Genea heard someone screaming for help while she was on her way to a house call. She stopped and headed directly for the person calling for aid. When she found the young man, she immediately went into triage mode and patched him up quickly, then ordered him to run as fast as he could while she tried to distract the killer. No sooner had the man run off than a dark silhouette of another man appeared behind her and knocked her out. When she recovered, she was lying in a dark forest, blanketed in fog, and a firelight crackled in the distance. And with her backstory out of the way, let's see what perks she brings along with her to help make the survivors' lives easier. Genea's first perk is called Blood Trail. Your training has taught you how to use your weakness to your advantage. You make no noise while injured. You do not leave a blood trail while injured. While injured, you gain a token for every 20 seconds you remain still. You can use a token to throw a 4, 8, or 12 meter line of blood in a chosen direction. Genea's second perk is called Morbid Sickness. Blood can save your life in so many different ways. Sometimes it's best used on the outside. While injured, you become covered in your own blood. The longer you are injured, you fill up your wiggle bar to 25%, 50%, or 75% over 15, 30, or 40 seconds. Genea's third perk is called Emergency Incentive. You are fully aware of the danger that your allies are in, and their peril makes you work harder so that you can get to them sooner. For every other injured survivor, you gain a 2%, 4%, or 6% increase to repair, healing, sabotage, unhooking, vaulting, or opening exit gate speeds to a maximum of 6%, 12%, or 18%. And those are Genea's perks. I believe they really take advantage of the injured state, which is something I think is sorely lacking in the game right now. Blood Trail is a neat way to not only stay silent, but also give false information to the killer. Morbid Sickness gives you a reason to stay injured and not have to worry too much about being downed. It might even go so far as to make no mither playable. Emergency Incentive gives you a bonus for other people being injured. Some people might ask what kind of speed bonus the other survivors would get when they all run this and they all stay injured. Well, I would just point out that would mean that they're all able to be downed in a single hit. Not good for an entire team. Survivors would have to figure out a solid balance while playing with this one. But that takes care of Genea's perks. I really think they can be interesting and strategic when used correctly, but you'll also have to be careful and aware while using them. They're very big on risk and reward. And that wraps up this week's Killer Creation video. I hope you all liked the Bloodhound and Genea. It feels so great to be able to make videos again, so I'm hoping you all enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike and let me know why in the comments. I hope you all have a great day, a happy Halloween, and as always, stay positive.